Welcome to another episode of Successfully Live. I'm Adam O'Donnell, the co-founder of Successfully. Today, I'm super excited to be here with Laura Patterson. So Laura is the president of VisionEdge Marketing. Thank you so much for being here.
Adam, I'm delighted to be here. It was so great to talk with John and you, and this is going to be really fun. Thanks for having me.
So what I wanted to talk to you about is that there is no business without the customer. I know you have some experience with that. Sounds obvious, but can't wait to dive in. Customer experience is not just, it shouldn't be a new thing, but it should be a cultural shift, which is crazy that we're even saying that we need to shift in that direction. And then the last is just customer data. Do you want to just get started with the first piece?
Absolutely. Let's rock.
Let's do it. So just no business without the customer. Kind of, what does that mean from your experience?
I'm amazed sometimes how easy it is for us to all get sort of myopic and heads down on things other than the customer. But as we all know, Peter Drucker once said, the purpose of business is to create a customer. So we can't really have a business if we don't have customers. So they always need to be front and center. And our job is to create customer value. If we create customer value, we'll grow, right? That's what it's all about. And, you know, Phil Kotler, who I have great admiration for, and I think of as the father of modern marketing, said, you know, marketing only has 3 jobs. We find customers, we keep customers, and we grow the value of customers. So if you think about it from that perspective, we're involved from before they're a customer all the way through the entire life cycle. It's not just about the front end. It's not about this funnel. It's about this life cycle. So that is, I think, something that people need to remember.
Real quick, just so why is marketing care so much about after the post-sale now? I mean, and when did that happen? I just want to ask the question because you've been around marketing for 19 years just with your company. Has that always been something you've known, or is that more of a recent thing with the SaaS model?
No, I think that it has been fundamental inside marketing a long time, but maybe somewhere along the way it got lost. So quick story. All right, I'll tell a quick story. I've told the story before, but my very, very first real job, you know, the real job that they actually took taxes out of, not the job of house, you know, babysitting, house sitting, all the things that you do when you're young. My very first real professional job was with an insurance company. And my title was Customer Relationship Manager, which I realize converts to CRM today, but I was in marketing. I was very young, obviously, and new to the profession. And this was my assignment. And I think I've said this story before. In those days, there were no computers. This was a very long time ago, everyone. Everything was kept in manila folders. So every customer was in a file, and there were rows and rows and rows of files. And my job was to go through those files and create a schema for a way to organize and categorize our customers, existing customers. And I won't go through all the details of how tedious a project that was, but I learned so much. And what the folks I worked for wanted to understand was, how could we connect with segments of customers in order to cross-sell, upsell, and grow share of wallet and overall customer lifetime value? Now think about that. I've been at VisionEdge Marketing almost 19 years. I spent 14 years at Motorola. I had some jobs before that. So this is a long time ago when people were still talking about that. So it's not new.
Definitely. Well, so, do you want to just talk about the next piece, which is just customer experience and how it's more than just a department or just it is a cultural shift. And I'd love to kind of hear your lens on that. With
customer experience isn't owned by marketing. You have to have a customer-centric culture in your organization. Everyone has to be about understanding the customer, serving the customer, and building the relationship with the customer, not just marketing. But someone does have to own how that's going to work. And that can be owned by marketing, and we should own it. I've looked at I'm in the middle of an article on this very topic right now. And so I was looking at some job descriptions for chief marketing officers recently, just to see what's posted out there. And I am baffled at how few of them have any reference to engaging with customers as one of the responsibilities of the CMO. So marketing needs to own that, or we're going to find ourselves CMOs being replaced by what others have talked about, chief customer officers. I've often said the chief marketing officer should be the chief value officer, because value comes from customers. So it may be, if you think more broadly, it's not just about demand gen. Sure. We are on the demand side of the supply-demand equation. Us, along with sales, customer support, product, we're on the demand equation. But that doesn't mean we're myopically about leads, right? We have to think more strategically than that. We have to help the organization have a customer-centric culture. And we need to think about organizing marketing around the customer lifecycle. I think if we did that, less around functions like content marketing, event marketing, whatever the functions are, but more around the actual customer lifecycle, that would go a long way.
I bet. Is there any examples that you found of marketing working with a customer success team in a successful way?
Well, yeah. I think I come from that culture, and I think that we see organizations who are really on solid rocket ships that are soaring to the next galaxy because they get customers. I was really fortunate. I had a wonderful and long career at Motorola Semiconductor, and in my 14-year career, I worked for the same person 11 years, and I think of him truly as one of my most important and influential mentors. And he was a design engineer. Motorola is an engineering company. I like to say that in my corporate life, I only worked for two kinds of people: accountants or engineers. And so he was one of those engineers who was given the responsibility in the helm of an operation that was hemorrhaging when he came on board, and grew that into a multi-billion-dollar entity. So, that's a real huge testament. And he did that by understanding customers. And he was very clear. He expected every single person on his team to know who our top 10 customers were and what they were buying from us. He would stop you in the hallway and ask you to list the top 10 customers, right? What do they buy from us? Where are they? Where are we in supporting them? What's the number one thing we have to do to help them be successful right now? He would have that conversation. He expected all of his lieutenants to be able to have that conversation at any time. Every quarter, we had all hands on deck, and we talked about what we needed, the entire company, that was an entire group. I'm not talking about his staff, everyone. Here's our priorities. Here's our customer priorities. Here's what we're going to do. And we did very unusual things back then. Customer commitments weren't on paper. We actually cast those in brass and concrete. He would bring in a concrete block. We'd write the milestones down. We'd sign them and right there present that to a customer. Eventually, we converted those to brass because concrete is really expensive to move around, right? Think about that. Brass plaques of what our commitments are to that customer, delivered to that customer. Now, that's pretty cool.
I thought you were exaggerating. That's a real thing. That's amazing.
That was a real thing.
That is a heck of a testament. And it's too easy for marketing to make commitments or make promises that the post-sale side just can't keep. So being able to have that alignment and that accountability is ridiculous. That's a cool example.
Okay, one more time for one more story. During my tenure there, I spent 1.5 years responsible for our number 2 customer. And during that period of time, this is all part of, growing, right? And being groomed for bigger and better things. And this was a really important experience. And I recommend that every marketer should have a moment where they are on the front line. And they're on the front line on the sales front, and they're on the front line on the customer support front. We need to be on every line. So I was really, again, quite fortunate. So I had the number 2 customer for 1.5 years. In that same period of time, the 2 primary products for this customer went on allocation. I won't spend a lot of time about why that happened, but it was just, the circumstances. And if we weren't delivering this product to this customer, they were not going to be able to produce their product. They would be going what we call line down. Well, if they can't produce their product, they can't compete in the marketplace. They can't keep their employees. You can see all the ripples, right? And so every week, I would go to the engineering offices to look for working product. And in the beginning, they would tell me what the working product was. And I would take that product. You have to understand what that looked like. Semiconductors look like little roaches, and all the roaches are lined up in a rail. It's not necessarily done this way now, but that's how it was packaged up then. I would take these rails. You have to envision, I'm only about 5'2" on a good day, and these rails are almost as tall as I am, okay? I would grab these rails, and I would walk out the front door. And I need to understand that taking product out the front door is grounds for termination. So I am walking out the front door with product because, thievery is not condoned. I drove in my personal vehicle to the airport, and I would ship that product without a waiver, without any kind of paperwork, counter to counter for my customer. And every Monday in our war room meeting, as I was presenting on what was going on with this customer, I would get tarred and feathered up one side and down the other for taking product out the door and just sending it to the customer. At the end of every meeting, and this went on for every week for a year and a half, Gary would say to me, "You do know that you're responsible for the number 2 customer, right?"
That is a good example.
So asking for forgiveness, not permission. Obviously, he could not tell me that it was okay for me to abscond off with product.
But thank you so much for that story. I mean, perfect example. I know you spend a lot of time with analytics and in the post-sale side of companies. So how can you apply that? How can marketers and customer success and growth apply that moving forward?
In 2001, we started a study around marketing performance management. In fact, we've helped pioneer that discipline. And what we wanted to understand is, what are best-in-class marketing organizations doing to drive growth, create customer value, and improve performance? And we've learned a lot since 2001. We've learned that the best-in-class marketers who earn really good marks from their CEO, COO, CFO have a number of attributes. First of all, they think of themselves as members of the business team first, marketers second. I think that's a really important message today. Because if you think of yourself as a member of the business team first and a marketer second, you look at your business differently than if you just look at it from the lens of a marketer. But the other thing is about the kind of data they use. Their data is more relevant, and it's more customer-oriented data. And so when they are looking at it, they're looking at it from the understanding how to use this data to help the organization make better customer, market, product, and competitive decisions, right? It's not just looking at about what do we do in marketing. It's really about making those important business decisions. So their focus on the data is from that customer data. Now, I know that a lot of the listeners are going to say, we have a lot of data, too much data, and what's holding us back is we have too much data, and so forth and so on. And I get that. I understand that there's a lot of data and we're being fire hosed by data. In my early career, we didn't have as much data as we have today, but we still had data. And we managed to make a lot more decisions with much less data than we have today. So I think that notion that we have so much data, we can't really make good decisions is not an acceptable reason for not being able to do this work. And I wrote an article on LinkedIn that came out a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's called Little Data, Big Insights, but it's a story. And I'm going to share a little bit of that story with you because I think it can be applicable to everyone. So my sister, who I'm very close to, had a cat named Blue. And Blue got old, and he needed some additional medical attention. So he was on a number of prescriptive drugs that she got through an online pet pharmacy. And as Blue continued to fail in health, and then very recently, he passed away. And the Monday after he passed away over the weekend, I'm talking with her, and she had just called the online pharmacy to cancel the last prescription order because Blue was dead and she didn't need it. And she's talking to the pharmacy and she's telling me the story they inform her that even though the prescription has not mailed yet, there would be a restocking fee. And she said, but he's dead. and through her tears, she is telling me this story, right? She's lost a beloved family member. She has a second cat. Now think about the data, little bits of data this company has probably collected. She probably registered to be a member of the pharmacy, provided information about her cat. And by the way, cats, their names, their ages. She has information, obviously, about their illnesses. She has prescriptions. I am assuming that hopefully the agency collects some information along the way and probably has a, why are you returning this product? One of the options probably is pet passed away, right? You would think. Now, all kinds of things could be done with little bits of information here, not streams and streams of data, little bits of information to have made for a different experience. But think about the person she was talking with on the front line. At that moment, on the phone, she's calling as soon as possible. The product has not left their doors. Really? That's the customer experience? I'm telling the story right now, right? It's going to be heard by thousands of people.
It's almost like there's a liability with the data. When you can collect the data, which you knew as a customer, like Amazon does it, right? Like everyone should be able to do it. It's kind of our new mindset. So we have these huge expectations on businesses, and it's fair. It's like, hey, you should have figured that one out. And that one is just a great example of like not taking data seriously and helping to make the best possible decision, because otherwise you're gonna look really bad. And that's an interesting story.
Right, and I think what happens today is that marketers use the data to stalk, right? It's about an upsell, about a message, about an offer, right? That's what it's about. That's not the same as customer experience. The customer experience occurs at the intersection of the human being. And that's the moments of truth. And I think we have another article about moments of truth on LinkedIn. It's older. I'm a big believer in the concept of moments of truth. And some of those moments of truth, maybe down the road, can be automated with bots and AI. But in the end, and maybe that will make for a good or better experience because we can do things faster, simpler, whatever those moments are. But in the end, they're going to be very critical moments of truth that occur between two human beings. And when that occurs, that's when the experience matters.
What kind of data should marketers be looking at on the customer side?
Yes, and I guess, it always comes down to what you're trying to accomplish, but clearly we need to understand personas, and data helps us do that. So, if you think about just the story of the pet owner, there's the pet owner versus the pet parent versus the pet advocate. Those are kind of different personas. And so you'd want to really be looking at data. You want to understand the customer's journey, pre, during, post. So pre-contact, during the conversation, consideration, consumption, usage, community, right? So you want data to understand that. You want to understand what are the nuances in the channels and messages that work for that journey, for those personas. I think that's kind of important data. So I think some of those things could be useful as a starting point. Understanding why customers leave. Why you win and why they leave. I mean, it's not just about finding them, but it is about keeping them, and which of your customers are at risk and why. I think that's, really important data. And I'm often amazed at how few marketing organizations have information about which of their customers are at risk or most likely to defect. And I'm not talking about NPS score, because NPS is really about who are you willing to promote? Are you a promoter, a detractor, or a neutral? So let me give you a really good example of why you have to have more than just that. So it's wintertime, and I am a wimp when it comes to running in cold weather. I used to be much better about it, but now not so much. And so during the harsh winter months here in Austin, Texas, which I realize for some people is not harsh, but for me, I'm a wimp. I said that. I joined this thing called Orange Theory. I don't want to go into Orange Theory, but I love Orange Theory. See, I'm giving them a positive push right now. I only joined them for 2 months. 2 months, because that's the worst weather. And I come back every year. So I'm a defector, but I'm a huge promoter. I tell everyone about Orange Theory, what a great program they have. And if anyone ever asks me about a place they could go for that kind of workout, I would recommend Orange Theory. So I'm a promoter, even though I'm also a defector.
We had a podcast where we talked about that and how there's actually sometimes a decorrelation to NPS. Sometimes people just push 10 because they don't want to be bothered and they're not that interested. And sometimes the people who are pushing a lower score are really the ones who are trying to get the most value out of it, who are really trying to work with you and most committed, because they're like, hey, like, honest feedback, you're at a 4, but I'm not going to leave because this is still better than what I was doing. So this is great to know. Well, I mean, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
This has been amazing.
I've enjoyed it, and I hope that your listeners will take away some good ideas.
Definitely. We got some good stories, some good information, great stuff. Another great episode of Successfully Live.